Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to Wake Up. Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
The sun is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, grand risings. Let's see what's new. It's the time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton. Sonia Poulton.
Good morning, you beautiful people. How much have I missed you? Can I count the ways? How are you? It's Monday, the 13th of April. It is exactly 9 a.m. British summertime. How are you all? Gosh, I have missed you. It is so wonderful to see you all in the comments. Truly it is. It gladdens my dear heart. Yes, it does. How you been? How was your Easter if you celebrated, or if you didn't? I had a fabulous time. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. I essentially cleared out our summer house. I started to renovate the garden. It's been so exciting. Good morning to you all. Cheryl has started waking her son up to this jingle. How wonderful to hear that. How are you? How are you? How are you? Welcome to the show that will not sit at any table where our friends are not welcome. Yes, indeed. And by friends, I mean all of you out there in our wonderful worldwide community. I love how far and wide Wake Up is reaching these days. And today's guests represent that perfectly. I'm here in Teddington, southwest London, and you're wherever you are. Where are you watching from today? I did see a comment, let me just bring it up quickly, which said, Borda, from a Welsh woman living in the Middle East. We are spread far and wide. Indeed, we are. And today we will be joined by one of your favourites, and mine too, journalist Warren Thornton. He'll be joining us from the Philippines. He'll be giving us a roundup of geopolitical events over the last week, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about Iran and Trump and Starmer and more. And also from Australia, we're going to be talking to ritual abuse expert, a woman who knows rather a lot about ritual abuse, about MK Ultra and more besides. She's going to be addressing how the UK contributes to the global trafficking epidemic of child abuse. Yes, indeed. And from the US, we will be joined by fitness expert Lance Shuttler, who's going to be talking health, happiness, wealth, you name it. Anything that makes us feel good. And we have got so much news to cover today. Melania Trump, fake Patriots, the spate of festival cancellations in the UK. What happened when I crossed a powerful TV executive? And your shout. Nick asks, what is the truth about that infamous Buckingham Palace video? That was a decade ago now, but I'm going to address it again today. And at the end, I'm going to be talking about time off and lessons learned. How are you all? This is going to be a really interesting feature, if not disturbing, says Vendetta. Are you talking about Fiona? And all you guys, grand start to the day. Yes, indeed. Big up Ireland. Big up Ireland. And we can see that obviously there's fuel protests which are taking place in Ireland. I've seen some of the videos this morning, some of the footage from Dublin. And it's also said to be spreading on into the rest of the UK, into England. We shall see. By the way, I noticed over Easter that there were lots of people calling for King Charles to wish people happy Easter. This is not ambitious enough, people. Why can't people wish for no royal family, thus removing all problems? That's my approach to it. It's going to be a great show, Synchronized Soul. Yes, indeed. Fuel protest Ireland, says Kira. Hashtag indeed. Hi from Northern Ireland. We're protesting tomorrow. What was the footage I saw then? Oh, good morning from St. Albans. Where are you people? Sharon is proud to be Irish. And me too, Sharon. I have some Irish blood flowing through my veins, I do believe. Yes, indeed. How are you all? Hey. No royalty, Paul. Absolutely. Let's get rid of them. Now, before we bring in our first guest, lovely Warren Thornton, and I know he's already here with us, let me just address some news. Today, there's going to be findings published from the first phase of the Southport Inquiry. The Southport Inquiry involves these people, very sadly, little BB King, little Elsie Stankham and little Alice Aguirre. They were at a Taylor Swift dance class on July the 29th, 2024, and they were murdered by an absolute psychopathic madman, Axel Rudakabana, who was only 17 at the time, and the law and his solicitors and various other people tried to play jiggery pokery with the fact that he was only 17. And so the report today, which, as I say, is the first phase, is expected to be highly critical of public services that ignored the threat that was posed by Rudakabana, including police forces, NHS mental health services, the local council's family and social services, his family, even X, formerly Twitter, is likely to be subject to some criticism, because before he got into the cab to go off and murder those little girls, he was said to have logged on to X, saw a video, and that was said to have G'd him up. I don't care who you are. There's no video in the world that can turn you into a madman if you're not already there. I'm just not having it. He was not okay. He was absolutely not okay. And all of these agencies were in touch with him. His school reported him to Prevent, which is the kind of UK terrorist watch. And I don't believe that narrative, says Vendetta. What don't you believe, Vendetta? That it happened. His school made 3 referrals to the Prevent de-radicalization program. Each were dismissed. So we shall see. We shall see what will happen. But rest in peace, those 3 children. And I literally don't think that there's any place bad enough for Axel Rudakabana. I really don't care about his mental health or otherwise. What he did was so egregious against just humanity that he just deserves to rot. He was fine, according to Prevent, said Woody. Rudy had no blood on his clothes afterwards, says Kira. Oh, right. Okay. So they're talking about a completely different narrative. And a completely different narrative. Right. Let me see what else. Warren is going to be joining us in about 3 minutes. Before we get there, I do want to comment on a couple of other things. One being dog owners in the UK. Please beware. Please be extremely careful. There are incidents that are happening all around the country, certainly been happening in London and to the southeast of the UK, where there is poisonous meat laced with rat poison, which has been put down. There have been 2 dogs close to me who have been taken ill with it. So be extremely careful while walking your dogs. There are some wicked, evil people out there. Wicked. And Mel is with that completely different narrative also. Well, then one day I will explore that. I promise, kids. I absolutely promise. And I want to talk very, very briefly. Sorry, I still had that on there when I was talking about the dogs. Very briefly about this. I think it's important. I think it's all about censorship. Jay Slater, his mum, Debbie Duncan, deeply concerned about how bereaved families are useful idiots for online censorship. Of course, Jay Slater, a British lad who went missing on Tenerife, was found dead almost a month later. And I was contacted by Duncan Smith. I don't know if you remember, Duncan Smith and Jan from Jan's Views had joined me previously, because Duncan certainly had been the target of a Channel 4 documentary to do with Jay Slater. And we could see very much that there was an agenda coming on here, and that this was to do with online censorship. And Duncan contacted me, showed me this Daily Mirror article. Jay Slater's mum praises Mirror after troll gloating at son's death removed from YouTube. And Duncan said YouTube took no action against me after Debbie and others protested at my videos, but then axed my channel for violating community guidelines, whatever that means, immediately after the Mirror group weighed in. So I'm not quite sure whose channel was originally taken down that led to the Mirror article, or whether it was actually Duncan's. But either way, he is a casualty of this. And this is really about overreach. It concerns me very, very deeply, because it's also about something, as I say, that I've already discussed. And the thing is, I started to look into this more, because we do know that Debbie, with the support of her local MP, Sarah Smith, has been campaigning for Jay's Law, and that is calling for stricter regulations on social media to prevent what they call tragedy trolling and the spread of misinformation. But I mean, as one example, some of my people in the comments right now, you know, you would be subject to laws, right? To laws for saying that you don't necessarily agree with the official narrative of Southport, right? And that's exactly what they're campaigning for. And getting people removed from social media is really troubling. And so I started to look into this, and I looked at Debbie Duncan's petition. And I noted that there's only 13,540 signatures on there. And yet, for some reason, it warranted a government response. Now, it is a fact I'm not a great fan of petitions, as anybody will tell you. I think they're just there to make people believe that something is happening when it's not at all. But what I find extraordinary is that you have to get 100,000 before you get a response, and before it's then tabled for some kind of discussion in Parliament, which is usually a joke. It usually involves about 3 or 4 people, and then that's that. But this petition has only had just under 14,000 signatures, and yet the government responded to it. And the government responded in detail about the Online Safety Act, which talks about the duties that platforms now have to tackle illegal content. But I've said this repeatedly, and that is Jay Slater, like Madeleine McCann, like Nicola Bulley, all of this will be used to shut down free speech. And it's really important that we are able to discuss these things. Really important. For example, as I say, there are people in my comments who are saying, no, that's not quite right. It doesn't stack up. And it's definitely my experience over the years that many mainstream narratives simply do not stack up, which is why I do what I do. How are you? Is that right, Kenneth? 4 YouTubers in Manchester arrested in dawn raids at the weekend? ? I'd like to know who they are and why. What was the reason for their arrest? But anyway, deeply concerning if people are going to start to have their YouTube channels removed on the say so of bereaved parents. And that takes nothing away from the fact that I feel deeply sorry for any parent or any loved one going through any of these things. Ella says, are we sure this isn't some kind of psyop? Because why is it getting so much attention? Are you talking about Jay Slater? You see, the thing is, we cannot rule out psyops in our world, and we don't rule them out at Wake Up because it would be damn stupid to. Lorraine said her cat was poisoned. It wasn't intentional, but killing the rat's worse. Right, got you. I'm going to bring in Warren. We have so much. Oh, got you, Ella. Got you. Well, hey, I've heard this for years about Madeleine McCann. Now, I don't happen to believe for a second that Madeleine McCann is a psyop because I've done far too much research into it, including, as people know, 2 documentaries. But there are many major stories which are psyops, absolutely, unquestionably. And if my viewers want to say that, then so be it. And they shouldn't be locked up for it, and they shouldn't lose their social media standing for it. Warren's coming on right now, Simon. Let me bring him in. Here he is. Warren Thornton. How are you, Warren?
I am absolutely fine, Sonia. How are you? And I hope everybody in your chat had a very happy Easter.
They are alive and well, and they are practically bouncing off the ceiling. These people are right now, Warren, which is what we love about them dearly. Warren, it's been a busy few weeks on your watch, I don't doubt. I was looking at the news this morning, just trying to catch up with what was going on in terms of the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I'm sure you'll put me on the right path if I haven't. Tell me what's going on. What do you consider to be the most important things that have happened in the last week or so?
Well, there was a failed attempt at trying to grab hold, obviously, of the nuclear enrichment facility in Natanz. The whole idea was to get some of that, take it back, and then, of course, you could walk away from the war going, look, we've stolen their uranium. Also, the Straits of Hormuz being closed is massive, absolutely massive. And of course, that is going to play a big part in what's about to happen going forward in terms of what it means to the ordinary people of the world rather than just the elite. And of course, Melania Trump coming out and saying what she said.
Well, I do want to talk about Melania with you. Absolutely. I have plenty to say. And as I'm sure you are in no doubt whatsoever. But I'm so interested in the kind of responses because I took a break. I was watching things from a distance. And it was so interesting, for example, when Trump came out with that awful, horrendous statement last week about wiping out a civilization. Shows you what an absolute psycho we're dealing with at some stage here. And then there was the backtracking. And then last night, it's all kind of like on again, moving forward. Are we being misled here, Warren? What's really taking place?
Well, what's really taking place is the fact that they do want to control the oil. They failed in their 2 main missions One of the missions, of course, cost them a lot of aircraft. And in fact, that's the biggest loss of US military aircraft in one day since World War II, would you believe? Not even in Vietnam did they lose that many aircraft. Now, there's no doubt whatsoever it wasn't to rescue the pilot. They used C-130 Hercules. They got shot at. This information was given to the Iranians by the Chinese very quickly. So they were able to send militia forces, which, of course, were shooting at the American aircraft. The first C-130 slewed sideways on the runway. So when the second one landed, getting any chance of taking off was a moot point because there wasn't enough runway. And on these C-130, of course, were the Little Bird helicopters that you use for quick ops. Now, the landing zone was 14 miles away from Isfahan to the south of Isfahan, and they were going to travel 20 miles to the north of Isfahan to the Natanz nuclear site, where there were only 12 security guards, and they, of course, had the information that this enriched uranium was in the tunnel waiting to be transported, and the whole idea was to go in, grab it, and bring it out. Only trouble is the F-15 carrying the colonel that was overseeing the whole thing by flying round in this F-15 got shot down, and of course there's all the nonsense about they mounted this one rescue. They didn't give up $600 million worth of planes to rescue one man. He had a lot of operational information.
I think a lot of it remains quite confusing, and I would imagine it's deliberately so, right? It's deliberately so. And so, because one of the things that I know is that it's far more complicated than it's been portrayed as being so, okay? It's not as black and white. People are like, well, this is about liberating the Iranians, and it really isn't as black and white as that, because there are obviously a chunk of people who say this is about liberation, and another chunk of people say this is about the usual imperialistic Western intervention. So where do you sit on all of this?
Well, very, very simply, we've done a program on this before. There is something called the Golden Corridor. And the whole idea is this railway that is being built by Iran, China, and jointly in some parts by Russia. The northern part of it will go through Turkmenistan. And of course, the southern part goes through Chabahar, joins Pakistan and India, and then up through into China. Now, this railway has been bombed while this has been going on, by the way. This railway has been bombed in 17 different locations, and 28 Chinese engineers have died putting this railway through, making the, shall we say, the buffers ready for going through Pakistan with various groups that are sponsored by Israel and the US. And nobody's talking about that whatsoever.
So what we've heard is Starmer is saying that Britain will not play any part at all in any moves to blockade the Strait. What do you think about Starmer's position at the moment?
Well, he's talking complete nonsense, Sonia, because here's where we have a problem. Keir Starmer has allowed Akrotiri Air Base to be used for targeting not only the school in Manab, but he was also they also had a plane up and helping to target with the strikes on the Lebanon the day of the ceasefire, of course, where over 300 people were killed. And any nonsense that Starmer is coming out with here, we're not involved in this war. You are. If you allow planes to land on your territory and load up with weapons to go and drop bombs on people, you're involved in the war. So what they have is this standing back brief, if you like, but they're fully involved in this. They're immersed in it up to their necks.
What about Trump? Because, I mean, one of the things that I covered before I went on a break, and this was from Jason, one of our viewers, was about this kind of insane, quote unquote, Christian mentality that's supposed to be around him, right? These preachers, and they talk about how his mission is exactly what Jesus wants and all that kind of stuff. And then he wrote on social media, and I think that was over the weekend, about that any Iranian who fires at them will be blown to hell. And he obviously posts really problematic images on a constant basis. I mean, where is he at exactly? Some people think that he's actually not fit to lead.
I don't think he is. The trouble is he's in between a rock and a hard place. He's surrounded by, shall we say, elite Zionists, left, right, and centre. You've got Lindsey Graham, Susie Wiles, who used to work for Benjamin Netanyahu, and then, of course, you've got Marco Rubio, You've got all these people that are literally lining up at JD Vance. Every single one of these has been, shall we say, gone and placed hands on the wall. And when Netanyahu walks into your war room and tells you exactly what you are going to do and that Lebanon are not part of the ceasefire, and then you renege on that deal, it is quite staggering. Now, just remember this, if you would, Sonia, is when they actually said that when they agreed to the 10 points, or in principle, they were never going to agree to them, literally the 10 points of the Iranian peace plan. And of course, then they said, oh no, we ripped that up and threw it in the bin. The literal, shall we say, connection that the Pakistan Prime Minister read out, saying that that was exactly the case, that they did agree to those 10 points and Lebanon was part of the ceasefire, was actually a draft that was written for him by the Americans.
I was talking to an economist over the weekend, and he was deeply concerned about how all of this will impact the UK as well as around the world, impact us in terms of our energy bills, in terms of food inflation and more. What are your thoughts on that? How blocking the strait will impact us?
Yes, he's absolutely right. And blockading the blockade is about the stupidest idea you can possibly imagine. The problem that we have here, of course, in the next 20 days, I was speaking to a friend of ours, who is very much to do with the economies of many of these countries. And of course, this is going to push the prices up. Brent has already gone over 100. And of course, many others are going to go up. Brent is the standard by which everybody looks. And we're almost paying double now. And of course, if it stays for the next 15, 20 days like this, then you're going to see not only the transport prices and the oil prices go up, but also your food prices as well, because of course this has a knock-on effect. If you're paying more to transport the food, you've got to charge more for the food to make a profit. So it has a complete knock-on effect, and it has it around the globe. And blockading the blockade is not going to help whatsoever, because everybody thinks it's just the Straits of Hormuz that Iran can transit through.
Right.
It's not true. They can transit overland as well.
I mean, yesterday, no, not yesterday, I think it was a couple of days ago, China announced that it was halting all its sulfuric acid exports as one example. So as you said, this is going to have a knock-on effect all around the world. We are going to be impacted in terms of food. We're already seeing it. I mean, there are protests, obviously, about oil price rises. But I do wonder, because we saw this before, didn't we, that in terms of like the Ukraine and Russian conflict, and they use that to knock up all and inflate all the prices. So how much is really based on reality and how much is based on their agenda of wanting just to continue to impoverish us?
Oh, well, they do want to impoverish you. That's absolutely. But this has more legs than the Russia thing does. And you have to remember that in Britain, we only got around 3% of our LNG. And of course, our bills went up by 219%.
Right.
Russia didn't turn around and say, you can't have our oil. We chose to stop buying it. And then, of course, Germany and various others went and bought it from America at 3 or 4 times the price after Russia had sold it to India and America had bought it from India. So there is a lot of this going around. But certainly the Arab nations are getting very, very upset because they're not getting rich whatsoever while everywhere's being bombed. And the Americans can't quite clearly don't have the best navy and military in the world. They've abandoned 14 of those bases within 1,000 kilometers. And of course, the aircraft carriers have moved over 1,000 miles away. So they are out of range of being hit.
And we are, I think, particularly vulnerable in the UK, in England. We import so much energy. I think it's about 44% of our energy is imported. We have no gas storage. So we're in a lot of trouble. We're almost hostage to these people, aren't we?
Yeah, we absolutely are. And of course, they're all playing the game. At the end of the day, everybody will do what America wants. NATO will do exactly that. They were saying, Trump is saying he's going to leave NATO. He's not going to leave NATO. He is not going to abandon those bases in Europe. Absolutely no chance. When you abandon air bases, you abandon control. This is half the reason why the Arab nations are in trouble, because they got rid of basically their armed forces because the Americans said, we're here to protect you. You don't need them. And now, of course, the boot is completely on the other foot.
And of course, with as it's pointed out by Aquaboy in the comments, we are actually seeing in real time them enacting Agenda 23 right in front of our eyes. And this is very much part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts this way. And of course, this is very much, and I'm literally going to go to the wall on this, Sonia. In the end of 2027, start of 2028, there's going to be an election in Taiwan, and it's highly likely that the Chinese party are going to get control of Taiwan, which then means that, of course, America are putting this, should we say, naval blockade around the outside using the Philippines, Japan and many others. They're going to want a proxy war there, which means they have to abandon Ukraine. And, of course, Europe are going to be left holding the bag. And, of course, we're starting to hear lots and lots of nonsense about conscription, getting ready for war with Russia. If you mind telling me how, we've never fought in a drone war in our lives. If we go in to Ukraine, who have now got well over 2.2 million men that are dead since the start of this conflict, people will have you believe that Ukraine have only lost 50,000 men. Now, along a 1,000-kilometer front line, Sonia, they're trying to get you to believe, would you believe, only 35 men die every single day along that 1,000 kilometers.
Right. I mean, it's interesting stuff. And as usual, we never have even half enough time to cover everything that we want to as fully as we necessarily do, because it's mostly an overview. But I do want to talk to you about Melania Trump.
Yes.
And as many people have said, her behavior is, has you ever heard of the Streisand effect? So Melania Trump obviously came out. She had this extraordinary press conference last week, which any seasoned professional journalist will tell you is designed to head something off at the pass.
Yes.
So obviously, First Lady, we're told that it kind of caught the White House out. They knew she was going to say something. They didn't know what. And so what's your take on it about why she did it? So obviously, the whole point was, I wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein. These aren't my people, blah, blah, blah. What's your take on why she did it, Warren?
Well, she's talking absolute nonsense. And of course, she's more than worried about Zampoli's mistress, who has now been deported by ICE. And of course, she's now come out and said that she's going to blow the whistle on everything that's been going on. And hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Her child is still in the USA. And of course, she's been deported back to Brazil, Sonia. And what we have
You're talking about Amanda Ungaro, aren't you? Somebody who was in the Trump's inner circle for like 20 years, said to be a bestie with Melania. And she's, as you say, I mean, one of the things that I want to know is, have you come across any information that it's a kind of an inside job to do with ICE and her ex and wanting custody? Because that's very much the story that has surfaced. Do you think there is validity to that?
Oh, there absolutely is, because Zampoli actually had an ICE officer down to Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks before she was actually deported. So that is without any doubt. And of course, she is angry and very angry at that. Now, you have to remember that Melania Trump, and this happens all the time, so I'm not having a go at this, but what we had was Melania Trump at 27, pretty much the end of her modeling career, and it wasn't that much of one, to be honest. Then saw a meal ticket in Donald Trump, and of course, Donald Trump saw a trophy wife, and that happens quite a lot. But they were put together by, she was very good friends with Maxwell, and of course, the Zampoli as well, who is an ambassador of sorts as well. He was given a job as a special ambassador. And of course, the problem that we have, when you look at Melania Trump's record, shall we say, from when she literally came to the USA in 1996 to 1999, leading up to when she met Trump, she has a very checkered past. And it's almost in the lanes of, not quite in the lanes of escort, but not far off it.
I mean, it's very interesting, isn't it? I watched a video of her from like 30 years ago, and I found the press conference really bizarre, sort of from a journalistic perspective, and not least because her ability to talk English seems to have deteriorated over 30 years. And I found that quite bizarre as well. And I also think that she's kind of insane, because what she's doing is she's testing the world. When you put out that sort of statement, that sort of press conference, you are testing the world to come up with the goods, to prove you wrong. And people are in droves. And I think Trump even knew her when he was still married to Marla Marples, because I saw a video of them together where he was introducing Melania as well. So I think this is going to backfire, certainly. It appears to be at the moment. My concern is about Amanda Ungaro, whether she will be able to survive this, whether she will be silenced. What do you think about that?
Yeah, one of those. I would turn around and say I'm not suicidal straight away, and probably go and live in a lead box somewhere before they put you in one. Here's the problem: there's no question whatsoever that Epstein's ties to the Rothschilds and to, shall we say, to Israel in general, that he was running this sort of thing, shall we say. There were many girls that were. Remember that literally. Amanda was dragged over by Zampoli when she was 17 years of age. This is very much something. There's a very seamy side of this. And of course, I've seen some photographs and spoken to, because I've been emailing people left, right and center about Melania Trump, because very much while everybody was looking for the other sort of more sordid aspects of Donald Trump, I was investigating Melania Trump and her background. And I was contacting various employers and various people, should we say, modeling agencies and various people who knew her, asking if they would like to talk to me off the record. And of course, very much I got the almost complete blank, but I did get one or two people who were willing to send me the odd photograph and to send me the odd snippet that they actually seen themselves from Melania Trump's past. So she has a very checkered past, and once it all comes to light, Trump is going to be very embarrassed.
Yeah, indeed. And as you say, it's all very blurry, isn't it? How she came to be legally in America. I just find it extraordinary that, given the type of people they are and about how kind of America is for Americans and everything, and how they went on about Obama and wanted to see his passport, and they are sitting on top of all of this. And how did Melania get an Einstein visa? I mean, that's about a person of exceptional merit. She wasn't even a supermodel. She was kind of like what appeared to be a basic, bikini model at best, really. And now it's all about brand Melania now, isn't it?
Yeah, she was a lingerie model who had an interesting hobby on the side, let's put it that way. Because obviously I don't want you to get sued. But she had an interesting hobby on the side. She was good friends with Ghislaine Maxwell for years and years. Let's not beat around the bush here. And the nonsense that she's come out with, I never knew this. I was not introduced by Epstein. She's correct in that. She's been very careful in some of the language she's come out with, Sonia. But she is mired in this up to her neck. And so are many of the other people on the Epstein list. And of course, coming out with this immediately once Epstein was starting to die down, you knew that she was frightened.
Right, exactly that. Because what she's done is she's brought it all center stage again. And some people are saying that that's a distraction from the show that her husband is doing in the Middle East. Do you think it's a distraction?
No, I think that is her absolutely panicking that somebody for 20 years, Sonia, that has known somebody for 20 years, knows where all the skeletons are buried. And of course, her husband doesn't need any help in trying to cover up what's going on in Iran. It's been a complete disaster and an epic failure, I'm afraid.
Right. Before you leave us today, tell us what's on your table this week, Warren.
Well, what's on our table this week is the fact that the Ukrainians have now lost over 2.2 million men. Kramatorsk is about to fall. It is about to go. And it is about the Russian push that is going to be this summer to clear up the Donbass. They are massing men all around that area, in the Donbass area. So we'll be concentrating quite a bit on that.
She's bricking it, says Stolly Fires. I tend to agree. I think that there's some truth in that. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, of course, giving us a brilliant roundup. We very much appreciate it as ever. Everybody, this is Warren Thornton. He can be found at warrenthornton.com nightly updates and news show. Good to see you. His Twitter is cool, says Simon, and so say all of us. Warren Thornton, everybody. Lovely to see you, Warren. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you so much. God bless everyone.
God bless you too, sweetheart. Lovely to see him. Absolutely lovely. And before I bring in Fiona Barnett, I just want to say briefly that I also think the other thing that was probably working on Melania deciding to give that press conference was the lawsuit to do with Michael Wolff. Now, Michael Wolff is a journalist, and I've talked about this before. And essentially, Michael Wolff had received a letter at the end of October 2025 from Melania's lawyers, from the president's lawyers, essentially. And it was a $1 billion threat because he was talking very much about her history, where was she coming from, etc. His lawyers were appalled. And so what they did was that they reversed the kind of the table and they took out a lawsuit, an anti-SLAPP lawsuit. An anti-SLAPP is a common practice of wealthy people to try and silence journalists. So anyway, Michael Wolff launched his anti-SLAPP lawsuit. He raised about $800,000 on a GoFundMe. So you can see people who wanted that exposed. He intends to continue his legal action against her. And then in addition to that, there's Andrew Loney. Andrew Loney has been on with us a number of times. In fact, I was the very first person to ever give Andrew Loney a platform, well before he became famous. And he obviously has his book Entitled, and he's updating that. And they'd had to do an edit, hadn't they, where he had talked about Melania and the introduction to Donald Trump. Well, that's now being updated. So all this stuff is now piling in. So Melania has lots to push back against, but I'm not convinced that she did it the right way, but we shall see. We shall see. Andrew's a gem, says Herbert. Let me bring in my next guest, who is also a gem. And we've never talked before. Fiona, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I'm so glad to be able to hear you. I just explained to our viewers, we had a little moment about 8:50 when Fiona logged on, and I couldn't hear her. I was like, no way, my viewers will just lynch me. They will come for me. Lovely to have you with us. I very much appreciate you joining us. And as everybody can see from the description here, CIA, child trafficking victim. Fiona, you're in Australia right now, and I'm so grateful that you're joining us this morning. It's just gone 9:30 in the UK. And I think I first encountered you about a decade ago. I mean, it's that long ago. Now, given the stuff that you've been talking about, that you've been exposing, the world must look a completely different place since you first started, right?
Well, I think fewer people are calling me a conspiracy nutcase. Yeah.
Right. So you came out, obviously you're an author, you're an activist, and you've talked about being a survivor of a state-sponsored satanic ritual abuse, trauma-based mind control program. You talk a lot about MK Ultra, but you also talk about how it all links up all around the world. And I think one of the things that made me go, now this is so interesting, was one of the people that you accused was Nicole Kidman's father. And you wrote to the authorities about him. Now, this is where I thought it got very interesting, because you wrote to the authorities in August, and by October, he was dead. Just give people a little bit of background there, because there will be people, a lot of my viewers will know you, but some of them won't, because I come from mainstream and they won't necessarily know, you or any of the stuff that you've done. Give people a little bit of background about yourself.
Okay, so long story short, I was thrown out of my psychology career, and on false basis, because I blew the whistle on a child trafficking ring at Bond University in Australia. And so after that was 2010. And by 2011, I was fed up, and I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. And I started going public online in 2011. And then 2014, I thought, Anthony Kidman, Nicole's father, he's still working as a registered psychologist, and I'd had enough. So I put in a complaint to our Federal Health Authority, and 36 days later, he was dead. So they took it seriously. I was not the first to complain, it turned out. He fled to Singapore, and a federal police group were being dispatched to extradite him back to Australia. And the first reports were he, fell off a balcony to his death, the balcony of his daughter Antonia's hotel that she owns in Singapore. And then the story changed about 3 times that day in front of my eyes.
It's an extraordinary coincidence, in all fairness, isn't it? The death of him after your report. And then they wrote back to you and said that they were going to essentially discontinue the looking into him, which I also found extraordinary, because just because somebody dies, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't continue their investigation, right? How did you feel about that?
No, look, I knew what I was up against. So
Right.
So basically, I was targeted from before my birth, really. I was trafficked from age 1. I was sold to the military, really. So I had step-grandparents who were Nazi war criminals. Australia was a big haven under Operation Matchbox for Nazi war criminals. And they had links to people involved. So Leonis Petrauskas was a very high-ranking Nazi doctor whose father was, I don't know, about second in charge of the Soviet Union. He was friends with Anthony Kidman. He was friends with my step-grandmother, or whoever she is. And basically, my step-grandparents lived right near Australia's first and major army base, and that's where a lot of this took place. So it took place in a 7-story or so underground facility that the CIA ran at Holsworthy Army Base, which is south of Sydney. And it involved all the really big people. So Joseph Mengele, who was not dead, he travelled the world running MKUltra. His I believe it's his son, Michael Aquino. He also was directly involved. John C. Lilly was directly involved. What's his name? Dr. Green. I was very young when I met him, and he died not that long after. Who else was involved? John Gittinger was the head psychologist. CIA, he was a genius that no one knew. Was such. And all these sorts of really big people. And Australia was really probably one of the biggest hubs of MKUltra subjects, because we were kind of the backwaters of the Western world. But people have to understand,
Right,
the CIA actually answers to British military intelligence. So the people in charge of all of this is British military intelligence, who set up the CIA, set up ASIO and ASIC in Australia. And the CIA do their dirty work, really. The CIA, well, look, child trafficking is run as a single integrated operation, right? A global operation that is coordinated by the CIA primarily. But then MI6 work in with it. So, so not only was I MKUltra'd, as they say, but MKUltra was a lot of different projects that started with, right, a couple of weaponized anthropologists, right? So Margaret Mead and Gregory Bateson. Gregory Bateson was one of my direct perpetrators, right, at Holsworthy Army Base. He had a big office lab down there. So they're the ones who started it all with their research into hypnosis and psilocybin, etc. in the 20s and 30s. And this is what people don't understand.
right.
They set up the Macy meetings of all the scientists. They're the ones who brought together all the MKUltra scientists, right, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They were experts in hypnosis and good friends with all the original, Milton, all the original hypnotists.
Right.
So it started with studying, drugs that place you in an altered state of consciousness, and hypnosis that places you in an altered state of consciousness.
I studied
Then it went on to-
psychology,
yeah.
so I studied all of these
absolutely.
people
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're talking about. And the thing is,
Yeah.
when you came out, you're absolutely right. People were not necessarily aware about how implicated Australia was in terms of this.
No.
And I should just say, there are people in the comments. Synchronized Soul said it was you who actually woke her up. And I know, like any of us, I've been covering the issue of child abuse now for, well, I don't know, probably well before the 2000s, right? So a very, very long time. And we were all treated like absolute imbeciles, weren't we, for saying
yeah.
any of these things? And even
Oh,
when
yeah.
I put on social media, I had 1 or 2 comments saying, but is she telling the truth though? But the thing is that now, with the advent of everything coming out, it's very hard, isn't it, Fiona, for people who
Well-
haven't been subject to what you have or haven't seen what I've seen. It's hard for them to understand how wicked people are, right?
Oh, it's beyond that. So how this works is, So basically, the Nazis weaponized esoteric information, which
Right.
really the people who were responsible for ritual abuse across the Western world are the Freemasons, all your secret societies, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, they're the scary ones, Order of the Eastern Star, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and the Jesuits within the Catholic group, and the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis. Now, the headquarters for the OTO in Australia was at the University of Sydney, in the Wentworth building, Student Services building, and all the major people, including Anthony Kidman and everyone who studied there, etc. And Martin Norn came to the University of Sydney in 1960 and taught everyone MK Ultra techniques and all this sort of thing. So it's a combination of the esoteric societies, right, the secret societies, and the military, who are all in these secret societies. So you've got your military orders, the Order of Dagon, which Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, one of my direct abusers, was in. So people have to understand, yes, there's all this MK Ultra, but the culmination of MK Ultra and all those experiments and everything they did was MK Delta, the Western Child Soldier Program, and that's what I was recruited into. And I'm the only moron from that program who's talking. Everyone else is dead. Okay, or they're terrified, or they're in a fetal position in the corner of a psychiatric unit. Okay, people say, "Oh, if this was true, she'd be dead." Well, no.
Right, I know that's an easy cop out, that statement, right? I hear it all the time. You can't win. That's absolutely right. But the point is I don't believe for a second that you're somebody who's there who sees it as a competition. You're just doing what you feel needs to be done, and how you've done it, I think, has been extraordinary. So you talk very much about this global network, which implicates obviously senior politicians, Australian prime ministers, US president, British royalty, military, brass clergy, judges, police, you name it, and on and on. And one of the things that you want to talk about and address today, and I very much want you to, is the UK's role in the child trafficking operation. I have so many questions already coming in, by the way, for you. Loads of questions for you. Talk to me.
Well, for a start, I did attend a massive ritual in St. James, that's the head Anglican church in Sydney, with the Queen when she came to declare Bankstown a city in about 1980. So I saw her ritually murder kids, okay? So this whole thing to do with and there's other stories around to do with the rules. So it's no big surprise that Andrew, is what it is. And it's no, look at Savile. How has England covered up Jimmy Savile's relationship with King Charles?
Right.
It's insane.
Extraordinary. And it's extraordinary. Not even a major feature of the child abuse inquiry. Extraordinary.
No. So Paul Mullen, everyone has to know, MK Ultra psychiatrist Paul Mullen, British, set up the fixated persons unit, or the fixated threat assessment unit in London. They opened 3 in Australia because of me. Okay. So they ended up opening 3 with Scott Morrison, right, who I called out, and then he personally came after me, sending agents, into my home, etc. Now, they opened up 3 units over here, and that's where anybody like me in England, they just kidnap and they just put in these facilities. Paul Mullen, he wrote papers in 2008 saying that anybody who criticises, and the government sponsored this research, anyone who criticises Prince Andrew or the royal family or anyone, they're psychotic. Anyone who says that politicians or royal family members are pedophiles are psychotic and they are right-wing terror threat, right? So this is this guy, and he's the one they tried to entrap me in multiple ways, right, in Australia. One by sending Isaac Cappy out, who was Michael Aquino's.
Somebody just asked me about Isaac Cappy. Yes, go on.
He's okay. So I came out. All I did was publish an article back in 2015 that went mental. Tom Hanks is a pedophile victim speaks, and I just reposted the victim of his that she says she is, right, and it went insane. Okay, this went viral. And then Tom Hanks was angry, and he's linked to the Clintons and all this sort of thing. And I exposed all the trafficking on the Arizona border. And I had some very popular websites then, Pedophiles Down Under and FIONA BARNETT.org. So they didn't like the influence I had in Australia. and what I was exposing, of course. Being a victim, it was harder to shut me down. And they personally sent Isaac over late 2018. The only reason he surfaced was and he started repeating some of the stuff I'd said about Hanks and some actors and all this sort of thing. Anyway, he failed to do what he was supposed to do in Australia. Prime Minister Scott Morrison himself brought him over through Tim Stewart, the Prime Minister's good friend, who's Tim Stewart's wife was the head bridesmaid at Scott Morrison's wedding. And anyway, it failed, and I said, well, Cappy will be dead soon, and he went back and he did die, and then Michael Aquino was dead within months of Cappy. And this is what happens. It's like Anthony Kidman. This is what happens if you fail, you're dead.
We were told that Isaac Cappy killed himself.
Oh, goodness, no. I think Craig Sawyer did it. Craig Sawyer had my guts too because I exposed him. He's a Hillary Clinton bodyguard, and he was Cappy. He was the last one to see Cappy. And another piece of garbage, Phoenix Enigma, was employed to slam me with this absolute crappy dossier that he sent around that I've debunked very easily. His name is Corey Daniels. His wife, now wife, was Cappy's girlfriend. He was involved in all the setup and the cover up of everything. And an NSA base was nearby. So I exposed the involvement of the NSA as well, just, from a laptop in Australia. And
you've never had a problem calling anything out, even large movements. You called out QAnon, didn't you? You said this is basically
QAnon.
junk.
Oh, it's obvious. Yeah. So QAnon. So I took down the False Memory Foundation. That was one of my goals. No one really understood what that was. It was one of my big goals, and I took it down. And Michael Aquino was scared. He's the one who came up with False Memory Foundation, satanic panic. He coined that term. So because he was the pioneer head of psychological operations of the US Army. So he came up with QAnon. And Jim Watkins was Michael Aquino's buddy from the military and friend outside. And he used to host child porn on his websites. Jim Watkins did. He hosted 4chan and 8chan, right? And that's what QAnon. So Jim Watkins and his son played Q. And I knew this, but I was told by a federal police contact, Fiona, don't ever criticise Alex Jones, don't ever criticise QAnon, because they are your platforms, your vehicle for getting your message out there. So I had to bite my tongue. See, another person who supports all the bad guys, who was based in Arizona in a prison, is Sean Atwood. I've got no time for that piece of shit. Right?
You're not a fan of Sean. You're not a fan of Sean. I worked with Sean. I'm not a fan of Sean. Anybody I know. Right.
Yep. He cancelled our meeting, and he promotes Phoenix Enigma, Corey Daniels, who was implicated in the cover-up of, Isaac Cappy's death.
Obviously, all of this is just allegations. We have no actual proof in any of this. And having spent the last 5 years being sued in the High Court, I'm very aware of we have to be careful about defamation. But you and I are on the same page when it comes to Sean Atwood. Of that, I can assure you, I'm absolutely in sync with what's being said. I actually exposed him myself in a live video. So I completely understand where you're coming from. I almost have too many questions for you that I don't think we're even going to get round to. So please do come back. But talk to me about the UK's role in child trafficking, and I think it links very well to what you've said, because I noted on your website you'd put this cover up, and this cover, of course, is Nicole Kidman with the man formerly known as Prince Andrew, and they're raising money for a children's charity, the NSPCC. So talk to me about the UK.
Oh, well, there you have. Nicole also is in the Epstein files 66 times, according to the web search engine. And Epstein even flew her from New York to Paris or something at one stage after this big conversation involving a billionaire named Tom someone. So she's got something to do with it. But I grew up with Nicole in the cult, and she was there when her father ritually murdered people, and a child in particular at Sydney Uni in the Great Hall. And I was there when her mother, we were at Order of the Eastern Star in the Freemason lodge that her father was at. They murdered a baby. So she's very much involved in all this growing up. But she was a minor when I knew her. But she did take, the press said, her security team who hated the guts told paparazzi, who told Jonica Bray, Women's Day journalist over here, was trying to do a story on me. She said that they said Nicole has taken a Scientology approach to managing Fiona. Now, since that, my car's been shot at. I've had meat cleavers left there. I've had pets killed. I've had all sorts of nightmares, right?
What is a Scientology approach to dealing with you? What is that approach?
Oh, well, if you investigate all of that, they kill people. If you investigate what Scientology does, it's a CIA cutout. They kill people. Okay.
Has she ever come after you legally?
No.
I mean, it's interesting because the stuff you've said has gone all around the world.
Let's go to court. I'd love to testify against all the murders I saw her father commit with her there.
So you're actually alleging that Nicole Kidman witnessed her father killing people?
Yes, killing a 5-year-old boy in the Great Hall. I was 9, I think, and that makes her 11. She was a couple of years older than me. And she was 17, and it was my 15th birthday. She witnessed her father beat the living crap out of me at her house after he drowned me and raped me, right? Semi-drowned me, in the pool.
Yeah, no, I take your point.
And she was there the next day when he was beating me in a chair in some basement or something. At her home.
Do you know what I'm going to do after this? I'm actually going to approach her publishers because I want to know what she has to think about Fiona Barnett. I'm very interested in that because obviously these are extraordinary statements that you're coming out with. Extraordinary stuff.
Well, she stopped Dylan Howard publishing a big article in the Inquirer in America. Her lawyers sent a threatening letter and said, don't you dare, because over there you own your own image. And they're about to expose Anthony Kidman. But she also, Women's Day, she paid them out to stop them publishing my story.
Wow.
In Australia.
These are serious allegations. They are very serious. As a journalist, I take this very seriously, what you're saying. And so, but you're safe to all intents and purposes. You're not suicidal. No. You've been speaking.
Oh, I'm not suicidal.
Right.
I'm not suicidal. And Australia murdered. They let Virginia Giuffre be assassinated here. Oh my gosh. The stuff that led up to that.
Do you know, I think we might have to run over slightly. Let's talk about Virginia then. Seeing you've just brought her up, and obviously Virginia most famously was probably the original most famous person to come out and whistleblow about the Epstein and about Andrew, etc. So you are in no doubt that Virginia was murdered. She did not take her own life.
Absolutely. Before they killed her, it's like with Kathy, I said, shoot, they're going to bump her off. Because what they do is it would have been military intelligence bumped her off for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if she was killed already in that crash, where she's shown bruised and everything.
That's interesting.
She might already be dead.
That.
So, and they said she breached some, domestic, apprehended violence order or something. What a crock. What a lie. And, this bus driver, I didn't know what was happening when I ran into her.
Right,
That's funny because they tried to take me out in a car crash in the same way. They T-boned an Uber that I was a passenger in. So,
I read her book and I did a very extensive review into it, and I found it actually heartbreaking. And I had been critical in parts with her because of some of her actions that I'd seen and some of the things that I'd done. But I found her book really heartbreaking. But I was also disturbed that it took her death before they released it, before they published it.
Do you know what? I believe my instinct. Now, a lot of what I say and do is because I was trained by military intelligence.
Right.
I was supposed to still be in the system. Right? I was highly trained. Okay. So, when I see things, I predicted like when I was going to be T-boned. I even said how it was going to happen to a friend, right? Before it happened. So I know how they think and when their MO. But I I believe that her names were removed from the book. Like Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut was edited, to remove all the child scenes or whatever.
Right.
I believe that
Ayad Barak, his name was removed as well, and she talked about how he had violently assaulted her.
Yeah. But the whole thing is, I think she was killed so that her book also could not release any further names. I think somebody edited the names out of the book.
Yeah, well, that's definite. I see. Because you think that I'm pretty certain the kind of character she would have definitely put all the names in the book. I'm pretty
Yeah,
certain
she was
because
strong as hell.
She named
And
them
she
before
named them.
anyway.
And she was so strong, that girl, okay, and
Yeah.
fought it all. Now, absolutely, she and all the others were subjected to MK Ultra programming, specifically beta sex kitten programming. Okay? Now, I
Yeah.
had that in my system too, so I know what I'm talking about. So people, if they've been exposed to any of this sort of, programming, mind control stuff, then that's a basic. And then they might have assassination training. They can operate as human tape recorders. So when they're seducing people, and they can ask questions and get the person in a vulnerable state, like me with Ted Turner. I was one at a poker game at Disneyland's Club 33, and then he would, I was 6, and he would talk to me like a husband would talk to their wife, and
What,
confide
former
and
husband
everything.
of Jane Fonda, right? Big media
Yes,
mogul,
yes,
Ted
yes,
Turner, right?
yes,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
you're accusing him. I mean, there's other people that you've obviously accused. Richard Nixon, I think Ronald
Richard
Reagan.
Nixon Richard Nixon at the back of a CIA plane at Fairbairn Military Airport in Australia. Prime Ministers Bob Hawke, Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, pedophile parties at Parliament House in Australia, and I watched the end of former Prime Minister Paul Keating. I saw a cover up by Leonis Petraskas of a 5-year-old boy he accidentally killed while he was raping him, and because this boy had a registered birth certificate, it had to be closed up. It had to be, whatever. Oh, look, I've seen it all because I was so high up in this stuff. People don't understand. So Virginia and the girls in that, they were at the, being prostituted out level.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was in the military level. I went to the Pentagon to briefings and things. I was used in operations. I was taught to fly planes. I parachuted into the UK. I attended secret meetings at Holy Lock, when it was a US Navy submarine base on the west coast of Scotland, Holy Lock.
Is there
I was there.
any pictorial evidence of any of this stuff? And I know that's very.
What I do have is a massive surgery scar on my knee from when I was 14, from a chopper crash in Nicaragua with
God.
Delta Force. So what they'd have, I was Alice. I was Project Alice. So I was Alice, and there were always 3 Jasons. Jason 1, 2, 3 were the code names. No one ever knew any names. And then the Delta commander, Jerry Boykin. He's the original Delta commander. So I'm of that era. All right. So they always use the best soldiers are females who are tall enough, 14 or so, to reach the pedals, but their brain's so flexible because it's the right hemisphere's function that they're after. Very high visual spatial IQ is what they need to do any of this stuff, to be able to be hypnotized, to be able to visualize for the MK Ultra programming, to be able to shoot a gun well. I was a crack shot when I was young, any timing in black martial arts, all these sorts of things. People had no idea what the Western Child Soldier program is.
Right.
And I'm the only one talking about it.
Right. Talk to me about how it all links up to the UK, because obviously what we've seen, and some people feel it's scapegoating. So what we've seen, obviously, is Prince Andrew removed and apparently downgraded. And then the whole thing with Peter Mandelson, and all of this is to do with their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But how... Because you say all of it emanates from the UK. That's what you're saying to me, right? Talk to me about that, about what is going on in the UK that we may not be seeing.
Basically, the Rothschilds are the head of the snake in the Western world. So they're the kingpins that everyone answers to. And remember, Epstein said, I represent the Rothschilds in his emails.
He did.
In the files. Okay. And all the way through, the Rothschilds are mentioned all the way through. City of London, they're a legal entity unto themselves. Okay.
Indeed.
The Rothschilds are head of the Rosicrucians. So the Rosicrucians are a bloodline order. So you've got the Illuminati, which is just another secret society, but bloodliners are in that. So I was a bloodliner. My husband's a bloodliner. My husband and children are blood relatives of the current King of Jordan. The King of Jordan's mother, her name's Muna, when she converted, is Tony Gardner. Gardner's a very famous bloodline. It's one of the top bloodlines, 300 bloodlines, that the top 13 bloodliners, right, take their genetics from, because they always want to, breed with
Yes.
high IQers.
Right.
It's a breeding thing. So they want high IQers. All right. So because high IQers can also be dissociated. So everyone in these families are abused. It's a tradition. They've been ritually abused, right, throughout their lives. All of these top families, the Vanderbilt. So I've got a bit of Vanderbilt in me, right? So that's how I'm in it. But all of these families, all abuse their children. And children of these families are either, they do a bit of a test when they're young, they're either consciously involved all their lives or they're not consciously involved. They have to use unethical hypnosis and all these techniques to hide from the victim their involvement.
I'm going to turn to the comments. I know there's going to be 3 trillion. People keep talking to me to ask you about Julian Assange. Do you have any thoughts about Julian Assange? Because
Julian Assange was raised in the family. That's Anne Hamilton Byrne. That was a CIA cutout. That was all of your cults across. And I wrote a free book called Eyes Wide Open, and I did it. Get the 2020 lockdown edition, and I've tried. There's a lot of esoteric information. Put it in the links for your readers. It's free. It always has been. I have never monetized a thing. I never asked for money for interviews with the press. That's why they believe me. Okay, and but they were shut down from the Prime Minister. He blacklisted, shadow banned me. But so all of these. What was I saying? Hang on, I lost my thought then. It's because I've had a stroke.
About the bloodline.
Oh, Julian Assange. Yeah, so Julian Assange. Yeah, so Julian Assange is a victim of Anne Hamilton Byrne's cult. It was a military-linked cult. I've talked about it in my book, explained how all cults were taken over by the CIA. So the Hare Krishnas were infiltrated many decades ago. Scientology is just a cutout. All you different, your Mormons are Freemasons. Their rituals are exactly the same anyway. So all your big churches, Hillsong Church in Australia that Scott Morrison was trained through by he went to the funeral of the outed pedophile Frank Houston who founded it, and then Hillsong went to America where Justin Bieber was touched up by the head over there. There's pictures of, this guy with his hand on his butt and everything. Right. These are all CIA cutouts. Hillsong specifically did ritual abuse. I knew people who were trafficked by them, and Anthony Kidman was heavily involved in Hillsong Church in Australia, where they just continued the CIA stuff.
You mentioned Justin Bieber, and do you think it's possible to rise to those kind of heights without being involved in these kind of cults or in these kind of programs?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
No, I don't think so. I think like Heath Ledger, for example, was clean, but I think he was murdered on set of Dr. Parnassus, which is his final movie. I think when you're looking at those ritual symbols and everything, I was in shock when I saw the movie, and I went, oh my God, he's dead. He's dead on set.
It's really funny. I think it's about 2012. I was a contributing and consulting editor at one of our largest news providers, ITN. And I'd had a conversation with my editor, and this was when all the Jimmy Savile stuff was coming out. And she was like, what do you think about all this? And I said, I don't think England is ready to hear the full truth about what's been happening with children. That's what I think. And then it was
Jimmy Savile.
Go on.
It's U-Tree. Operation U-Tree, Jimmy Savile, Cliff Richards at Billy Graham crusades. Billy Graham, I was trafficked to him at Bohemian Grove on recommendation of Richard Nixon, his close buddy. Think Watergate. How do these people not think of these scandals? Jimmy Savile.
You call it pedogate, don't you? Watergate. You call it pedogate.
Yes, Watergate was a pedogate because I was told by James Rothstein, who was a New York police detective, and NYPD are a very special branch. They're like a secret service kind of branch of the police over there. They investigated all this. What's it called? The Promizio affair. What was the one where the person in England, I can't remember,
Oh,
starts
you're
with
not. You're
P,
talking about
and
the Profumo
yeah,
affair.
Profumo affair, yes.
John
He
Profumo.
investigated that. That had links to America and all the child prostitution and stuff in America, okay? And all the politicians around the world and, you know, Australia, Britain, all this sort of thing. Now, this is all linked. There's like, so Rothstein said that the whole Watergate thing was the Dems had the little black book of proclivities, and that ended up in the hands of Hillary Clinton, who was the lawyer in that case, and that's how she rose to so much power. And Bill got in because she had that book and she had all the names and everything on, you know, Nixon and everybody else. So they were trying to break in to retrieve that book, is what James Rothstein told me, who was involved in the investigation.
You describe Eyes Wide Open as not a biography as such. You describe it as a descriptive dialogue, right? And descriptive dialogue is limited, you say about it, but you talk about it as a reference book, and it does quite an intense breakdown of all this information. Yes. When you're writing this stuff, what are your thoughts? Is it cathartic? Are you worried about what's going to happen to you?
Oh man, I nearly died, you know, writing that. Now everyone's got to understand, I did 10 years of very intense therapy. I was totally DID, but my system was so seamless because it was built in a lab by Jason scientists, you know, by the people who pioneered these techniques. So it took many years, even for my very good psychologist at that time, to detect I had dissociative identity disorder. So I really call it trauma-based forced association. I don't think DID and this fit, okay? Right. And basically, I was completely in an altered state, so that it was Alice was the front military intelligence person, and Alice, you know, sort of 14 still in my head. I would never do the things I did then now. You know, like I took such risks. I was nearly killed so many times, all this sort of thing. But I just went, you know, go hard or go home. And, you know, these people were pursuing me anyway. They wouldn't let me live a normal life. All I wanted to do was become a psychologist specializing in assessing gifted kids at Bond Uni, right? That's all I wanted to do. No, they had to still pursue me. And that's what Anthony Kidman promised me. You will become nothing without our backing. That's what he told me, and slammed my fingers on the piano at 16, right? When I had to go before the Grand Council at Sydney Uni and plead my case. And I said, well, I'm out of here. You know, you guys, you know, anyway, there's a big story behind that. It's in the book. So what was I thinking when I wrote the book? I was in an altered state. I was thinking as a military intelligence strategist. And what I was thinking was, I wanted to give a voice to all those kids I saw murdered. They breed kids, right? The military in America, in Australia, and in Britain breed kids in captivity to use them as lab rats, and to create one of me, an Alice asset, right? To create one of me, they had to murder hundreds and hundreds of children. Okay? So that, you know.
Go on. No, I take your point.
So when that's what I'm thinking.
You're like overflowing, right? You're overflowing. There's so much that you need to get out, that you need to express. And it's really interesting looking at the comments. I would say the vast majority are in your favor, but there are one or two who are like, there's no proof of this. But then there are other people pointing out that when you're actually being, I know, when you're actually in these situations, you can't actually take pictures of it. That's not how it generally works.
Okay, to those people in the comments, what would you like me to do? Will I get in my TARDIS, go back in time to when I'm 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and film it and come back with the evidence? Are you serious? This is the CI fucking A. You tell me, I think I've done a pretty good job. I'm consistent all these years. The only time I'm not consistent is when I didn't back then release, oh yes, I was over the legal age when I killed people for the military, okay? That's the only thing. I said, oh, yes, it stopped it before 16 because back then I didn't know legally if they'd come after me. Things like that. Or I remembered more detail in 10 years of therapy subsequent, okay? So what I wrote in that 2020 lockdown edition of Eyes Wide Open, I now, you know, I can expand on because I've filled more things in, okay?
Right. I've got you.
You know, it's like my knee. It's like my knee scar. There's some evidence. Did you know I dissociated from that most of my life? I was in therapy one day processing the chopper crash, which I'd processed for years. And then I went, hang on a minute. I pulled up my right leg of my tracksuit pants and I looked down and there's a scar beautifully done by CIA doctors. And I rang my husband. I said, I went into shock for a long time. I rang my husband and said, did you know I have a scar on my right knee? He says, yeah. I said, how long have you known that? He said, forever. He says, I just never thought to ask you how you got it. And that's the first time I noticed I had a massive scar, half the size of my knee. That's how it works.
Let me read you some of these comments. Monica says, Fiona, you are so brave. Thank you for speaking out about these horrors. Mark says, your story is too consistently complex to be fiction. Trinity says, I believe you. Catherine said, proof is in the traumatized survivors. And I think anybody listening to you would be absolutely aware that you have certainly been traumatized. I'm somebody who's very in tune with this sort of thing. I myself had been traumatized. I was abused as well as a child. I get it. And I understand there's a authenticity about some people who have been through certain experiences. You can just hear it. It's tangible, but it must be so frustrating. And I can hear the frustration in your voice. It's just, it must be frustrating because we are further along than 10 years ago.
I tell you what's frustrating, that years ago, over 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, I wrote articles in an online journal called Independent Australia. And, that journal got just hammered by the ABC, which is your BBC. I was used, for example, I can see why the ABC are nervous and they slammed me on national TV. What they did to me was from the start, hammer me. And they broke all the rules and they criticised me, not the media coverage of my story in Australia when I did a press conference and all that. So, but I tell you why ABC are covering it up, because I was used for child porn filmed at the TV studios on what's called Play School set. And one of the Play School presenters, very famous, John Hamblin, who's dead now, an import from Britain, and a lot of these people come from England. All right. So the Richard Gilliatt, the person who slammed me in the Australian newspaper and slammed me, and slammed other victims and whatever. And then the other one's Paul Barry, who worked for the ABC Media Watch, just attacked me viciously, and also co-owns a magazine called Crikey, used that to slam me and attack everybody. But what I did differently was I don't give a flying shit what you all think of me. Most people would stop at being embarrassed.
No,
being called insane, a fantasist, all this.
You've been through that. You've been through a trial by fire.
Yeah.
Let me read you what Kath says. Let me read you what Kath says, right? Kath said, the not being believed because your character has been trashed by the abusers. And we have to allow for that fact that the abusers are linked up to these massive global systems that use our money to trash us and demonize us when we speak out.
The military, you can see it in my book. I've put some of the earlier research papers in my book. I wrote it for lay people using information that's easily accessible online. Whereas I've been working on a new book, which is just basically a therapy guide, because I know how to undo M culture, and no one in the world has written what I know. I've undone it, right? The programming. Their methods, right, are using military paid trolls. So they have recruits in the military, and then police, intelligence, and that they hire, fat lounge chair sitters, and they pay them big money to sit there and have 10 accounts, right, in different names, and they all converge on someone like me and start going, bang, 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 bang. You will see them all over. And what you have to do is call them out. You must online call them out. I'm on Twitter, and they were attacking me again, but I know what they do. I know their MO. I know how they sound. I know how their accounts look. But the average person doesn't know. But British military intelligence pioneered all that. Go and have a look at the articles I put in Eyes Wide Open, and have a look at the articles elsewhere. Their tactics, because they're influencing social thinking. And so if somebody is slammed in the media, everyone goes, oh, I don't want to. It's like shame and embarrassment human nature response. I'm not looking at that. But see, I fought back and said, listen, arsehole, you're a troll.
Right.
And then, and people, and I gave survivors a voice in that way. So they saw me because I was a trained leader in the military, and this is the only reason I've survived. And, most are dead or they're frightened.
I saw all this up close before with, I don't know if you know Dr. Joan Coleman, who came up with the RAINS list. I was the last journalist to meet Dr. Joan Coleman, and I watched her
Yes.
Right. So she came up with the RAINS list, and I watched her be demonized through the 90s. And then in the 2000s, they were starting to admit, yes, there are these satanic cults, there are these satanic rituals, but it can take a long time because what you're saying is so contrary to the narrative. That's the thing.
So
that's what's
in my
difficult
book,
for people.
I witnessed cloning, human cloning, years ago. It was very highly advanced. Pine Gap is a CIA base. That's where most of the really bad stuff happens. No one can get into Pine Gap. No one can get into Holsworthy Army Base. No one can get into Lucas Heights nuclear reactor, 20-story underground facility the CIA also runs and was built by Americans, right? Like Pine Gap was. No one can get into these places. So unless you've fucking been in there, critics, don't tell me what's in there. And I can show you documents and research of some of this stuff that has come out over the years of what's going on in there. Okay. Now, look at what's in the CIA files, in the Epstein files that have been released. The dribs and drabs. And my articles are mentioned in the Epstein files. God only knows why I'm in the Epstein files, right? It's like a tease. Anyhow,
I'm in the Epstein files for all the right reasons.
Well, the Epstein files, they're talking about cloning, genetic engineering, right? Some breeding program. They've got pictures of bloody decorations made out of human skin and babies, stuffed babies and stuff was in there that I saw. I mean, I'm sorry, but how does anything I say, you've got articles there where people have reported, and
it's hard for people.
Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell were electrocuting a child, at Frogmore Cottage. And then someone else said they saw Prince Andrew murder someone, torture them to death elsewhere. Now, do you know what it takes to even get the FBI to even listen to you?
Absolutely.
The fight I had.
Absolutely.
I had a fight to make state-based police statements. All right? It is so hard. So
it's so hard.
Look at the Zorro Ranch. Someone did diagrams of what's going on and all these labs underneath.
Cloning.
And talking about transhumanism and talking about what is the other one? Oh, plants that have hypnotic effects, place you in an altered state of consciousness. See, what people have to understand, the relevance of hypnosis. If you are hypnotized, say 3 times, it becomes a reflex, a conditioned reflex. What it is, how they do any of this programming, is they place the right hemisphere in a dominant position. Normally your left hemisphere is dominant. It is the critical analysis part of the brain. It is conscious memory, etc. Your right hemisphere is normally non-dominant. If you are placed in an altered state of consciousness, the right hemisphere becomes dominant. The more deeper you are placed in that altered state of consciousness, the less you will remember, right? While you're in that altered state of consciousness. Now, certain things place you in that altered state of consciousness. Hypnosis and mind-altering, like drugs, like, the LSD and things like that, right? So what happens is, it's called state-dependent memory. It used to be called dissociation of learning. If you're in a dissociative state and you're giving training, they can train you. This is what MK Delta is about. Whatever they teach you, and they can do it very quickly. When your left hemisphere comes online, like ours is right now in everyday life, you will not remember one flying thing about what happened while your right hemisphere was dominant. Now, so the only therapies that work are those that place the right hemisphere in a dominant position. So that's ethnical hypnosis. Good luck finding that. Something called Clayfield therapy, visualization, which is what was used to create the programming in the first place, right? and, you know, somatic experiencing and, you know, some different things. Now, or neurofeedback can do it, right? So what they do is, so EMDR is a big thing, you know, 120 beats per minute. That corresponds to delta oscillations in the brain.
That's true. It's
and
massive at
places
the
you in an
moment.
altered state.
Right.
Yes, well, it works. But what did they plug? CBT. Who brought CBT into Australia? Anthony Kidman and Seligman, who they did electrocution of children on cattle grids in the bloody the States, at Harvard University, etc. Jolyon West, one of my perpetrators, was involved in that research. You know.
It's huge stuff that you're talking about this morning. Absolutely huge
Yes.
stuff. And I find it,
Yes.
I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated. I don't claim to know the half that you do, but I do know a lot about child abuse and trafficking involving the parasitical so-called elites. I know a lot about that, and I've covered that extensively. I know less so about cloning, about mind control, although I know it absolutely exists. It's ridiculous to suggest it doesn't. It's just absurd. But
A
Fiona,
grade 9 student in France, cloned a frog as part of a science project 15 years ago. How hard is it?
right, exactly. London Lady said, what a show. Yes, indeed, what a show. And Fiona, I'm so glad that you were able to stay with us longer today, because I think it was absolutely vital. But I want to leave the last word with you. What is it at this? I'm going to have to bring you back because I've had so many questions for you, and I hope you will agree to come back and join us again.
Sure.
I've had so many questions for you today, and it's been really fascinating, actually, because I'd heard so much about you. We've never had an opportunity to talk. You're as passionate as I am. I also can come over sometimes as aggressive because I get so angry that people just aren't getting it. And the problem is that the abuse continues. While we're not getting it, the abuse continues. This is not historic. The stuff you're talking about is not historic, right?
This is happening now. It's happening to young children in my own family, right? Because my siblings never got 1 hour of therapy between them. I'm the eldest of 7. We were all ritually abused. Several of us were taken to Holsworthy Army Base. The others remember stuff. They've told the police, yes, it's all true, right? But people are frightened.
Yeah.
The thing that holds all these victims down is the amygdala fear response, which is triggered by any of this.
Exactly.
And the main thing people have to understand, the programming was laid interdimensionally. The right hemisphere processes interdimensionally. CERN Hadron Collider and the quantum computers were modeled on the right hemisphere's processing capacity. It's in the research now. It's not a mad thing to say. Okay, so people have to understand that I was flatlined 40 times in my youth, okay? Because the major programs are laid with a flatlining. You're reborn into a new part, and they dress you up in wigs and stuff and said, this is who you are now and this is your job. That's how they create parts artificially, right? People have to understand, do not reduce this to your frame of reference, to your limited understanding of what you've seen in your narrow life, okay? Now, I'm not trying to insult people, but it's easily out there, okay? If you go onto my FIONA BARNETT on X, I've put a heap of shit up there, okay? It's been, the evidence has been out there for years and decades, okay?
People can't comprehend how evil and how wicked our world is. That is the problem.
Jimmy Savile, all right? Jimmy Savile, Lord Mountbatten, was bombed for the child abuse that he committed in Ireland, right? Jimmy Savile was given the keys to a hospital, and the nurses used to say, shh, pretend you're asleep so he won't rape you.
Absolutely.
The first reports decades ago were of satanic ritual abuse, right? It's all in your newspapers. Why can't you understand that? Why can't you look at this? How hard is it? It's in my book. I summarise a lot of stuff.
You do, and I will put a link in the description. I just want to finish this, and I think this is interesting. Mel says, so much going on here, I can't concentrate on any one thing, but that's because of how much has probably been done to you psychologically that you have to get it out, right?
It's not even have to get it out. I am getting it out. I thought I had half an hour, and I went, bang, that's what I do. So what kicks in is my military approach. And I get a lot out in a short amount of time so people can rewatch, rehear this program,
I'm the
and
same.
it's not that hard, really. It's just that I'm thinking I could be shot tomorrow. This is my
Understood.
one chance. Do you understand?
Got
That's
you.
how I'm thinking on the inside. You say, yeah, come back. I may have a bullet in my head tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, so I'm planning, I'm strategizing the whole team. How do you think I'm still alive? I've been chased around Sydney when I went to make police witness statements, etc., by our MI6, right, version of MI6. I evaded them. I've evaded being dragged into Paul Mullen's fixated persons unit because they tried to plant weapons on me and get me to endorse terror activities and all this sort of stuff. I evaded that, right? All the time, my brain is strategizing and assessing this threat to me. Virginia Giuffre is dead. That is the reality. And guess what? It happened before their eyes, and nothing's being done about it. That's how murder works.
That's exactly how murder works, because we make the victim look crazy. That is what happens. The victim is made to look crazy.
Hey,
the whistleblower is made to look crazy.
Jill Dando.
Right.
Jill
Yes.
Dando.
Listen, I have to ask you.
Assassinated.
I have to ask you about one more thing. Of course she was. I have to ask you about one more thing, and that is your take on Melania's speech last week.
I actually didn't listen to it, so I've got no comment at the moment.
So she was just essentially coming out saying, I don't know Jeffrey Epstein, we weren't friends, etc., etc. So, I got you. Trinity said you must be exhausted. Right. You must be exhausted.
I have aged a lot. In therapy, I have to tell you, when you relive, so a fear of facing this trauma in everyone. Yes, but a fear of trauma in people like me and people of MK Ultra is fear of death. Now, I nearly died in therapy, reliving, right, one of the flatlinings, being spun and drowned at the same time. God, I hope I never have to go through anything like that again. This stuff's real. My body is broken. You see, I have done a few of these interviews recently. I've come back online. And I am exhausted. It's made me very sick. I've just got over a very serious lung infection. This is not who I am when the screen is shut, okay? I've aged prematurely. I've had cancer on my spine at the radioisotope injection site, right, from when I was 12 and 14. I've had a brainstem stroke for where they did an operation with a hot needle into my brainstem to sear it and enhance visual spatial processing ability. I used to have photographic memory, all this sort of thing. I live with dreadful disability. I'm in pain every day. The problem with therapy is once you can't dissociate anymore, you feel all the injuries.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. Listen, there is tremendous support. You should read the comments. Really interesting stuff. People are desperate for you to come back already. And I want us to be able to take more time in the future. And I do believe you will be able to come back. I think that, you're protected. You're protected enough to have got this far. You are loved, says Dell. Dell wants you to know that you are loved. And Ross said, I'd love to see more of Fiona. Amazed by her strength and recovery. So much respect for her. And thank you so much. Wonderful, brave ladies. And lots of really good stuff. Fiona is better than all of them, says Nara Bungley. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you for being so powerful and passionate. I do appreciate it. And, it's difficult. It's really difficult. But I can guarantee you that everything's going to be fine. And honestly, I want us to be able to look back on this in 10 years' time and say, look how far we've all come. That's what I want to be able to do. So take good care of yourself, everybody. This is Fiona Barnett, and I'm very grateful that she was very generous with her time and gave us much longer than I'd originally asked her for. So thank you, Fiona. Take good care of yourself. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to have you with us. Very, very powerful stuff indeed. And the reason, this is funny how life works out, peeps, because the reason we were able to have longer with Fiona is because our last guest didn't turn up. It's absolutely fine because I was delighted to be able to keep her on longer. Thank you, Fiona, says Randy. Take care of your family. NCP said, thank you, Fiona. Been a fan for years. Thank you, Fiona, says Mark Book. And there are one or two who are uncertain. And I get that as well. Because this sounds like crazy stuff, right? It sounds like absolutely implausible, improbable stuff. But I also know how deep it goes and how they want us to believe that we're crazy. And they want us to believe that anybody who says stuff like this is crazy. So I'm always, well, that woke me up, says Daryl. Much love, says Django Lisa. Right. So anyway, let us move on. And yeah, what good timing that guest didn't turn up, because I actually think that what she had to say was more interesting and more important. No problem, Elfie. No problem at all. It isn't crazy when you think of the Epstein files. And Ella, that's the point, isn't it? Is how much everything has changed in recent times. People are starting to accept and understand more now, which is great. Right. I want to talk some news that's been going on. I'm sure we all heard about Kanye, legally now known as Ye, and that he was banned coming into the UK. And the ban was issued by the Home Office, Shabana Mahmood, we were told, but it was completely backed by Keir Starmer and their handlers, their Zionist handlers, of course. And the ban was issued on the grounds of it would not be conducive to the public good, and that was following a series of comments that he had made, which was declared to be anti-Semitic and pro-Nazi comments. And this was when he was having a bipolar episode, and they've allowed people far more problematic than Kanye West in. But the reality is that we see very clearly with the banning of Kanye, the absolute power of the Israeli Zionist lobby. We absolutely see it operating in full time, and then all the arrests over the weekend to do with Palestine action. Again, we see it in real time happening, the Israel lobby's power. But I think this is about a wider scenario as well, because there's a whole load of festivals that have been cancelled or doing what they call a fallow year, i.e. kind of essentially put on hold. And that includes Glastonbury. And so Wireless Festival said, okay, Kanye can't come. We're not having the festival at all. So they cancelled the whole festival. That seemed really weird and extreme to me. But there are other festivals all around. There's the Wide Awake Festival, which is taking a break this year. There's the Hardwick Festival, which has been cancelled this year. There's the Boundary Festival in Brighton, has officially closed now, officially closed. The Glastonbury Festival will not be operating this year. They say that they need the land to recover at Worthy Farm. Then you've got postponed events like the Lido Festival in Victoria Park. It's been rescheduled, it's been reduced. There's Ocean Fest. Organisers say that 2026 will be a fallow year, and there's other cancellations and so-called fallow years. Live at Leeds in the Park, Highest Point Festival, Gone Wild Festival, Nocturne Festival, Lambeth Country Show, Keep It Country London. Why are they cancelling all of these festivals? Why are they? And you have to wonder, they say it's because of soaring production costs, that the cost of living crisis make it untenable, that there is a sameness fatigue, that many smaller and mid-tier festivals have struggled because of kind of like homogenized lineups. There's issues with lack of insurance coverage. There are environmental factors, such as, for example, they say that Worthy Farm, where Glastonbury is held, needs to recover. I'm not convinced by any of this. Trinity said they expect riots. I also think that there isn't obviously an agenda for us not to gather in numbers. We know that absolutely. Well, festivals is exactly where people gather in numbers. And there is also this whole idea of taking the joy out of life as well. I mean, pubs are closing exponentially, and any Brit will tell you that pubs are a cornerstone of British community life. They are. It's where people gather. Pubs have been as important in Britain, in England, in the UK as the local post office and the local bus stop. They want to do away with traditions and joys, say do Celis. It started with pubs. Yes, it did. Club 33 is thriving, but I feel that there is something else going on there too. I absolutely do. And it's very weird, but it's the beginning of the Agenda 2030, slowly, says Marco. And of course, all of this plays into that. Kira said, I heard closing down pubs was to stop us interacting face to face. They want us online all the time. And we know that there's truth in that. Nikki works in a pub. Is it a thriving pub, Nikki? Have you seen a depletion? Markson said expensive fuel equals stealth lockdowns. And they're also talking about Club 33 and why ever not, indeed. So I thought that was interesting. I also saw that GB News probably in a lot of trouble. And there's a viral clip. It's gone viral anyway. And that is of Kiki, daughter of Bev Turner, defaming Drake, claiming that he raps about kind of rape and other heinous acts, which of course he actually doesn't. And so that's all gone viral. So I think GB News is going to have a problem there. And I'm not here to cuss off somebody else's child. I'm not going to do that at all. But honestly, if you're going to involve your child in Nepo baby scenario, like bringing them on GB News when you're hosting it, make sure at least that they know what they're talking about. Because that may cost GB News very healthily and heartily amount of money. Herbert is teetotal. Right. We're down to 3 pubs in, is it Liskeard now? 2 closed down in the past year. That's Cornwall, right? Base driver. It's awful. Awful to hear it. I've been to many festivals. The smaller ones are often more fun. I agree. Who said that? Yes, Port, GB News is controlled by Lovely Hedge Fund. I didn't know. This was a shock to me. You know, Winston Marshall, who used to be in Mumford and Sons, and he's trying to set himself, well, not trying, he's set himself up as a podcaster. I didn't know he was the son of Paul Marshall, who backs GB News and other entities. I didn't know that. And it's funny how these people kind of infiltrate the truth. And I consider that an infiltration of the truth in many respects, although stuff that Winston Marshall talks about has absolutely nothing to do with what I talk about. Isn't he on the whole Muslims are bringing down the UK kind of thing? Isn't that his kind of gig? If I've got that wrong, Winston, do let me know. Come and join me, correct me. Married people, a lot of festivals in the house music industry and landing themselves in Malta now and moving away from the UK. GB News has a multitude of problems, says Steve Lloyd. It really does. It really does. Right. Infiltrating the truth. Indeed. So, people, I'm sure we all remember this video.
Helt annan tid, eller hur? Det är så här. Är han naken?
So Nick wrote in, said, what is the truth about that infamous Buckingham Palace video? Well, it's old, of course. It's now at least 11 years old. I think it was 2015 when it happened. And what it is a video, and it went on the internet, obviously, went very viral, and it claimed to show a naked man in Buckingham Palace. The man appears to be climbing down from a window using a bed sheet, and it was happening during the middle of the changing of the guard, a big traditional event that takes place to do with the royal family. And after a few feet, the man plummeted down from his improvised climbing rope. Buckingham Palace at the time and now say they do not wish to comment on the video, but the video clip actually, Nick, was said to be a promo clip to do with the US drama sitcom The Royals, starring Liz Hurley. So that is the official story. So I went to try and find that promo. I couldn't find it. Has anybody seen that promo? Has anybody seen that promo? Because apparently it was a promo, a video clip that was used to promote the Royals and a pretend online tabloid called Dethroned. And it's kind of like a 25-second clip, and people believe it to be real. But Reuters fact-checked it, and of course you can trust Reuters, I say, with my tongue firmly in my cheek. Trinity has never seen it anywhere before. John says it's the official story. The Windsors is hilarious, Lisa. Yes, it is, but it's not the one. To my shame, the promo has eluded me. I saw a link saying it was Spanish TV comedy, except for as a standalone video. And that was the point. They said, so I went to find the series of it and couldn't find it in the series, and then was informed, it's a standalone promotional video, which I couldn't find. So actually, Nick, I don't have an answer to you. The official story is that this video was to promote a US program called The Royals and a fictional online tabloid called Dethroned, and that it was all a promo stunt. And that's the official story. John said the promo didn't exist. Simon said, best show ever, Lady Sonia. Thank you. So I don't know. Is this due to fuel? Is this due to fuel shortages? What? Mel said, aren't Reuters Rothschild owned? Are they? Somebody do a quick fact check on Reuters for me, people. Thank you, Stephen. I do my very best, but I've always found that interesting because a lot of people have always asked me about that, Nick, by the way. But to not be able to actually find the promo video, I thought was extraordinary. So, because Reuters quoted it as a promo video, the Daily Mail quoted it as a promo video, and yet none of them had the promo video. They just said it was a promo video. Well, that's not actually enough information for me to be able to say that it is outright a promo video. Every media news organization is literally what, realist? What? The video was doing the rounds on social media a few years ago. Yeah. Came out 2015. And sure, they got permission to film that there. Chinny reckon. What's that? The video? Yes. What's that? Speaker of Truth did a breakdown of it. I sent you his video. Oh, I don't know about that. Have I seen that? Sorry. I mean, sorry. If you've emailed me, it is possible that some of your emails may get lost. I receive hundreds a week. Hundreds, and I try and respond to as many as possible, and it's very, very hard, and I miss them. Send me that again, please, Blue Nomad. I'd really appreciate it. So no one knows who the guy is. Elfie, the TV and the media claim that this was purely promotion, that he was an actor who was involved in the staging of it. Well, I mean, that lends itself to so many questions, because that definitely appeared like he was coming out of Buck House. So they would have to have had permission, and yet Buckingham Palace don't wish to comment on it. Talk to me. It's funny. Google says not owned by Rothschilds, though more research might prove that wrong. Got it. It was Borat, said Herbert. Come on now. Which actor? Right. I've only just sent it. Oh, okay. Thank you. Trinity. I had all those questions, and all I kept coming back to was they said it was a promo, and I was like, well, where's the promo? Oh, it's no longer online. So Nick, I'm sorry. I haven't got a definitive answer for you there, because I'm not just going to accept that's outright a promo. I'm not. And that's the kind of person I am. Can I please remind us the last time that I was on, obviously, was I was on with the lovely Gordon Woods and his daughter, Brianna. He's now sent me an updated version of Being Put Through Hoops. Oh, that was such an emotional show. I actually cried on and off the whole day, because Gordon, of course, is a survivor of the Celtic abuse scandal, and Gordon is dying, and Brianna, his, I think, 20-year-old daughter, is one of his main carers. And I found the whole thing highly emotional. So anyway, but lovely Gordon sent me this, and actually also sent me another message which made me upset, and that was, when he leaves us, Brianna wants to come back on and talk to us. It was Simon. It was so heartbreaking. Blue Nomad, it is very sinister considering bodies have been found. Absolutely, it's very sinister. And how interesting that you have Reuters rallying around. But I was like, well, surely they should have embedded the clip for the promo, and they hadn't. So they're just telling us it's a promo, and we just have to accept it. Amy, it was so sad. Right. So I want to talk briefly about a conversation I had with a former colleague last week. Let me see if I can bring in an image of it. And it was to do with a debate that I had. I used to be on This Morning on ITV, and This Morning is a sort of major mid-morning TV show in the UK. And I was one of their main debaters for 10 years, until I decided to tear up the script and just say exactly what I wanted to. Well, I've always said exactly what I wanted to say, but on this particular day, I went far too far for the bosses, and they couldn't get me back on course, and that was the end of my time on This Morning, and that was 2019. And I was very grateful for it. It was time to say goodbye to them. But I was reminded by a colleague about this. Let me just get this image up, people, because you can only have a certain amount of images on the screen, which is why I have to bring in more. Oh, it does seem to have disappeared. Here it is. Here it is. So this was a debate that I took part in. And 74% is in my favor. And that was a very senior boss at Channel 4, Ralph Lee, who was responsible. At the time, he was Channel 4's deputy chief creative officer. He was head of factual, and he was responsible for Benefit Street. And Benefit Street, they wheeled out around 2014, and it was all very much part of supporting the government narrative that anybody in receipt of benefits, and a lot of people in receipt of benefits are working poor, they're working and they're still impoverished because that's the way the system has now been set up. And they'd created Benefit Street, which was based on a street in Birmingham, and it was essentially about people on benefits, but it was about demonizing poor people. And coming from the kind of background that I come from, right, free school meals, the whole lot, proper lower, not even working class. We were kind of like underclass, and proudly so, very proud of my background. But coming from the background I was coming from, I could absolutely see that this was about the demonization of impoverished people. Anyway, I ripped into him, I ripped into his ideas. And at the time, that particular week, I'd received a call from a friend, and actually it was that friend that I had the conversation again with last week. And my friend said to me, "You will never appear on Channel 4 ever again. You have just humiliated the boss." Right? So I was like, well, we'll see, because I'd done loads of stuff on Channel 4. I'd been on the news. I'd even presented a program on AIDS in the 90s. So I'd done loads and loads of stuff. And anyway, so I said, we'll see. Anyway, the truth is, she was absolutely right. I've never, ever appeared on Channel 4 since. But I had a similar conversation again last week with the same person who said to me, listen, I was right, wasn't I? I told you you would never appear on Channel 4 again. You humiliated the boss. You got 74% of the voting British public to essentially say that his idea was mocking the poor. And he didn't like it. He didn't like it at all. I never appeared on Channel 4 again, and I didn't care, because I always saw it very much as sort of a controlled opposition type channel anyway. And then Ralph Lee then continued his ascent into broadcasting. He went to the BBC. I think he's now a production company. The production company, I think, that made Benefit Street. And so I think it's really interesting, because to me, my approach then is exactly the same now. And that is, being poor is not entertainment. This was absolutely poverty porn, but it was more than that. This was about enabling the government to carry out these treacherous acts against sick and disabled people with the backing of a major program that was kind of continuing this whole idea that people who are on benefits are lazy, are feckless, are unworthy. And I loathed it. I absolutely loathed it. It was a reprehensible program. Yes, Little Britain did mock the poor. The name itself is humiliating, Drum. Yes, it is. Anyway, so it was just an interesting conversation that I had last week with her. And she said, see, I told you, you never get back onto. She said, your name was mud. Your name was mud around the building. And that made me feel really good, actually. It made me feel so good, because I thought, sometimes it can take a very long time to hear back about the impact of what it is you've done. And I've never held back, and I don't care. And a lot of people, I was also told by the same person, a lot of people refused to debate any program controllers, because, especially journalists, especially researchers, because they know that they will then become persona non grata. It's a badge of honor, Marcuson. Absolutely, it is. It's horrid programs. The Matrix is real. It is real, of course. Absolutely. It is a badge of honor. And at least my name was known. Yes, indeed. And it's known for all the right reasons. And that is standing up to people like this who want to mock people who are down. Right. That's what they want to do. It's insufferable what they did. And they continued it. It became a continuing series. And they created these characters like White D and all that. And it was really about mocking lower working class people. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I very much upset them. And I love it. And I love hearing that I very much upset them. Yeah, makes me happy. You can see my face. Look at me looking at him. He's just like looking at, but me, I'm like looking at him like, you are everything that is wrong with broadcasting, mate. So Jeremy Kyle wasn't vile, Mary. He is vile. He remains vile. That man has yet to be held to account for what happened. Steve Diamond, terrible, terrible stuff. Yes, He's avoiding eye contact, and rightfully so, because I was absolutely vicious. And Lisa is disgusted at the bullying that takes place on social media. Thanks, Elfie. Thanks, Elfie. I appreciate that. Anyway, as I say, being poor is not entertainment, and I'm absolutely sick of TV executives using it as entertainment. And I love it when I hear, 12 years later, that I really pissed them off so badly that my name was mud around the building. Yes! Kudos to me. Yes, Kira. Absolutely. Made me feel great hearing that. It truly did. Just to say, I'm absolutely surprised by the response to a Bulic Forsythe short I did. Bulic Forsythe worked for Lambeth Council, was murdered because he was going to whistleblow on the child abuse that was taking place that linked Lambeth councillors to Parliament, and he was murdered. We've had almost 1 million hits on that short across platforms. And a lot of people had no idea who Bulic Forsythe was. So even though there was a documentary about him that's available online, but so many people wrote in comments across all platforms, never heard of him before. That made me feel good. Yeah, that made me feel good, because at least we haven't forgotten his name. What self-plug did you do there? No problem. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. So it made me feel good. Thank you, people. I very much appreciate that. There was one story that I missed earlier that I want to try and remember. Yeah, I think this is important, actually. This whole idea, right, about patriotism and how people are great patriots, right? Well, I mean, isn't it a fact that what we're actually dealing with is a lot of fake patriots, right, who want to see the destruction of the UK? And I say that based on fact. First of all, there was an article about how there was analysis, 2 years worth of posts about London, and it revealed a clear sign of coordinated and inauthentic activity. Now, I don't need a newspaper article to tell me that. I know that there are absolutely bots online, certainly on X/Twitter, that are based all around the world, in India, in Israel, and they are doing down the UK. So I don't like that. But we also have people within the UK who are doing down the UK. And when you hear things like London has fallen, England has broken, the UK is a third world hole, and all that kind of stuff, you're doing down the country, and you're doing down the country for a reason. And there was a video which was captured by Hope Not Hate, and I am no fan of Hope Not Hate people. As we know, they are also their behavior is they are like modern day witch finders. So I'm no great fan of Hope Not Hate, but that doesn't mean that every now and again they do something that I approve of. I don't approve of, and I approve this. And they had this undercover recording which features Paul Golding, and he's from, is it the British Front? He's from one of those parties, and he's there in this undercover recording saying the moment that we're waiting for is fast approaching. I want this country to become a hole, because that's the only thing that's going to get people off their backsides. So these people are Britain first. That's it. Thank you. These people are deliberately wanting the destruction of our country for their own agendas. And I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it at all. Add to that, as I say, what has been happening online, people all around the world who are monetizing their attacks on the UK while pretending to be British patriots. It makes me sick. It makes me sick. And I'm not having it. Listen, I absolutely agree. We have problems in the UK, in England, we do. And not least because we are governed by people who do not have our best interests at heart, not least because we have a royal family that is riddled with predators and surrounded by predators. So, of course, we have problems. We have problems with unchecked immigration. We have problems, absolutely. But this whole constant doing down is part of an agenda. I don't like it. Liz Truss is a piece of work. A piece of work. Don't talk to Tommy Robinson is hardly ever here. He just returns every now and again for one of his marches throughout London, which he's going to have another one in May. And I'm absolutely sick of these people using derisory and derogatory comments from people who claim to care more than the rest of us. No, I actually don't call myself a patriot, but I do love my country. I do love my nation, but I don't feel the need to be out there yelling it. And the problem is that we are learning very quickly that the people who are shouting the loudest are the ones who are oftentimes contributing to the problem. That's what I have to say about that. Tell that to the potholes in the road, says Marcuson. Yes, indeed. There's problems in the UK. There are problems. Liz Truss just awful. She's awful. And Lyra hates programs like Benefit Street. If she's been on benefits, it's very hard. It is. There was a period of time as a single mother when my child was growing up and I was in receipt of working tax credit. And it's very hard to make ends meet. And they want to bully. Amy, I would love Tommy Robinson to come and join us. Yes, I would. And I've invited on numerous occasions and had no response whatsoever. And unfortunately, our guest has just joined now and our show is literally stopping. I suspect that there's been a problem with timing. Lance, I hate to say this, you were due an hour ago. We're literally ending the show right now. I'll bring you back on. I will bring you back on. So, people, just to say that undercover recording of Paul Golding, really problematic, very revealing, tells us everything we need to know about these people. Everything indeed. And before I leave today, thank you to our donators. Thank you to Peter Birch. Thank you to F. Young. Thank you to Dinesh Nehru. Thank you to Gerrit Olemans. Thank you to Faye Jennings, to Ian Jones, to Catherine Montgomery, to Noureddin Sidham, to Margaret Ruffley, to Alan Adams, to John Goldsmith, to all the people who contribute in the super chat and have done over the last couple of weeks when I've been away. Old Stagger Madred, Jenny from the block, Marilyn Devonish, MB, me, Simon Milk, Daniel Krause, Catherine Hutton, Sandra S, Bookmark, Paul Trainer, Liz Graham. Thank you, Sticky Marks, for your super chat. You are kind and generous as ever. They promise us the future whilst they steal the world. Wake up. Indeed, wake up. And thank you, Mark. Thank you for your kindness. And thank you, Kath Hutton. I appreciate you all so very much. And before I leave today, I want to tell you about some of the things I did on my Easter break. So what I did was I set myself major tasks. I was going to clear out the summer house at the end of our garden, which is just full of so much crap. And I was going to landscape the garden. Well, I kind of did both. I had 2 major trips to main recycling plants in my borough, and I tore up the garden and I dragged the daughter to B&Q and we bought loads of gardening stuff. And it was absolutely wonderful. And I was able to go into the shed and recycle loads of stuff for the garden, such as old wooden shelves that have been blended into the rest of the garden with new flowering pots. I've turned wooden chests into vegetable planters. I've planted potatoes and garlic and carrots, and onions are going in this week. And to me, it's all about new beginnings. It's all about starting again. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. No, that's naughty, Herbert, you naughty one. And thank you, Mary. I very much appreciate that too. And but to me, it was very much about a new beginning because, you know, I'm a bit of a hoarder. I'm a bit naughty like that. And so when I was in the summer house, there's files there from when my daughter was at school and her books. And there's even my school reports in there and all that stuff. And what I realized with the stuff that I threw away, like old gardening tools and clothes, like anything that can't actually, well, it didn't throw it away because the thing about the recycling plant in our borough, it does actually genuinely get recycled. So that's good to hear because a lot of stuff that we get picked up on the roadside is not genuinely recycled. It all gets put into the same landfill tip. But when you go to actually the recycling plants in our borough, it does get properly recycled, and that includes the clothes. But what I realized at the end of all this clear out, that the only things that really matter are the things that are sentimental to us, right? Old clothes, equipment, old jewelry, anything like that, that none of that matters a jot to me. What mattered to me was looking at my daughter's history, old pictures, that sort of stuff. Humphrey, did you do some steam cleaning? No chemicals. Yeah, my steaming, no chemicals, that sort of stuff. And No, base driver. It's the one in Kew. It's massive. It's massive. On the first trip, I said to one of the guys, because they're not supposed to help you. I said to one of the guys, "Want to earn a quick tenner?" He said, "What for?" I said, "Helping me unload this, get it all into the right places." And he said, "No, I'll help you. You don't have to pay me." And I said, "No. I said, I want to give you this." I said, because I just think, why not? What goes around, right? Is your son's birthday on Friday, London lady? Well, happy birthday to him. And by the way, when we were last on and we had a problem with the YouTube count, that was a problem in YouTube. That wasn't to do with us. Steaming. It was really good stuff. And so I very much enjoyed it. It was a moment of great sentimentality. It was very thoughtful. I recycled, as I say, loads for the garden. It's really, I think it really helps your mental health a lot. It gives you great clarity. It increases your productivity and focus. You have an all-round healthier living environment. Our garden is looking fabulous. I've designed a little pond, a path. I've already set the path. It's looking exciting. Thank you. Tired of this. I very much appreciate that. So I think everything is just kind of coming up rosy, as they say. And I'm sorry that we seem to have had a time mix up with our last guest. So I think that we're going to have to reroute that, unfortunately. What's that? I had to turn down payment for helping a neighbor unload her shopping. So she started buying me a peach, which was lovely. I have my old school cat from junior school. That's the stuff that matters. It's sentimental stuff. It contains the memories. That's the really important stuff. So before I go, as ever, thank you to my... Oh, that's not supposed to go that quickly. I don't know why it's speeding by like that. Thank you, Kira. Very much appreciated. That's all my wonderful contributors, of course. Thank you for being here as ever. And I am going to... No, he's a fitness guy, but unfortunately we seem to have had a mix up with the times. I thought it was all double checked. It's not his fault. These stuff like this happens. But unfortunately the show is literally ending right now. So I'm going to end on a quote, and that is, do not wait until the conditions are perfect to begin. Beginning makes the conditions perfect. I will see you on Friday for our investigation show, and then again next week. Take good care of yourself. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that. Lots of love to you all. Have a terrific week. Take care.